Why don't Buddhists believe in God? What if I told you there's a path to peace that doesn't begin with the prayer and doesn't end with a heaven? One that asks for no belief in a creator, no worship, no salvation, just presence, silence, and the courage to look within. That's the quiet strength of Buddhism. And for many, it's enough. But it leaves a haunting question. If God is real, loving, eternal, all-powerful, why would millions of sincere seekers walk a path that doesn't even mention him? Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating spiritual questions of our time. Why don't Buddhists believe in God? But this isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about understanding. Because the more deeply we understand what others believe, the more clearly we see our own hearts. You see, Buddhists aren't lost. They're not rebelling. They're not waiting to be saved. They're walking a path built on awareness, wisdom, and quiet liberation from suffering, from illusion, and sometimes even from the need to explain the universe with a single divine being. And yet, doesn't every soul, in its quietest moment, long for something more, something higher, beyond the self, deeper than thought? Could it be that the light they seek within is a reflection of the light above? In this video, we'll explore 5 profound reasons why Buddhists don't rely on God. And along the way, you might just discover something about your own beliefs, your own doubts, your own longing for truth. Whether you follow Buddha, believe in Jesus, or believe in nothing at all, I invite you to stay curious, stay open, and stay honest. And if questions like these stir something inside you, hit that subscribe button to join us here at God or Satan. We don't give you easy answers. We offer deeper questions, the kind that stay with you long after the screen goes dark. Let's begin.
Reason 1. Buddhism focuses on ending suffering, not explaining creation. The first reason Buddhists don't focus on God is simple, yet profound, because their path isn't built on explaining how the universe began, but on ending the suffering that's happening right now. While many religions begin with stories of creation, of a divine hand shaping the cosmos, Buddhism starts somewhere else entirely, with the raw, honest truth that life is filled with pain, sickness, aging, loss, fear, disappointment. The Buddha didn't come to speculate about who made the stars. He came to ask, why do we suffer, and how do we stop? When people ask the Buddha deep metaphysical questions, is the universe eternal? Does God exist? Is there a soul? He often stayed silent, not because he didn't care, but because he knew that even the most beautiful answers wouldn't heal a suffering heart. Imagine someone hit by a poisoned arrow. Do they first need to know who made the arrow, what kind of wood it's carved from, what the archer believed about God? Or do they just need the arrow removed? To the Buddha, belief in a creator, whether true or not, wasn't the medicine. It was a distraction. This might sound strange to someone raised in a theistic faith, where the first step is often faith in a higher power. But Buddhism flips that order. It starts not with worship, but with awareness, not with a being to be obeyed, but with a mind to be understood. And for many, that's enough. But here's the deeper question. Just because Buddhism doesn't begin with God, does that mean God isn't there? What if God doesn't always speak through thunder and commandments, but through quiet insight, through compassion, through stillness? Maybe the silence the Buddha honored wasn't the absence of God, but the space where God waits for us to listen differently. And maybe, just maybe, ending suffering and knowing the Creator aren't opposite paths, but 2 ways of walking toward the same light.
Reason 2. The Buddha remained silent on God, and that silence speaks volumes. One of the most curious things about the Buddha is not what he said, but what he chose not to say. Throughout his life, the Buddha was asked many times about God, the origin of the universe, the nature of the soul, and yet again and again he remained silent. Not because he had no thoughts, not because he feared the question, but because to him, those answers were not what set a person free. To the Buddha, liberation wasn't found in speculation, it was found in awakening. And awakening didn't require a doctrine, it required direct experience. Why cling to a belief about God, he would say, when you haven't even fully understood your own mind? But here's the paradox. The Buddha's silence on God wasn't denial, it was restraint.
It was humility. It was the wisdom to know that truth isn't always found in answers. It's often hidden in the quiet spaces between them. And that raises a haunting, beautiful possibility. What if the divine is real, but not the way we imagine? What if God isn't a voice in the sky, but a stillness inside the soul? What if the silence the Buddha honored is the very place where God waits to be discovered, not through belief, but through awakening? Many Buddhists walk this path without needing to name what they feel in moments of deep compassion or clarity. But what if that presence, the one that stirs when you forgive someone, when you sit in nature, when you see suffering and still choose love, what if that presence is not just inner peace, but divine presence? And so we ask, not to challenge the Buddha's heart, but to honor it. Could the silence you cherish be echoing with something more? Could the calm awareness you cultivate be the quiet shadow of a greater light waiting gently behind it? We don't claim to know, but we believe the search is holy. And if these questions stir something in you, even just a whisper, I invite you to stay with us.
Reason 3. Karma replaces divine judgment. But who wrote the law? In many spiritual traditions, there is a divine judge, an all-knowing being who rewards the righteous and punishes the wicked. But Buddhism paints a different picture. Here, there is no divine courtroom, no heavenly trial, no personal deity keeping score. Instead, there is karma, the quiet, relentless law of cause and effect. Every thought, every action, every intention plants a seed. And sooner or later, that seed ripens. No one pardons it. No one overrides it. It simply unfolds, as natural and unstoppable as gravity. For many Buddhists, this is not only logical, it's empowering. You are not waiting on grace. You are not depending on mercy. You are responsible for your own life. You are free. What you give, you receive. What you send out, you attract. And through that cycle, the soul learns, evolves, and awakens. But let's look deeper, not to reject karma, but to stand in awe of its brilliance. Because if this law truly governs our lives with such subtle accuracy, such moral clarity across lifetimes and generations, then we have to ask, who or what designed it? Think about it. Karma rewards love. It humbles pride. It honors honesty and eventually breaks down cruelty. It doesn't move with randomness, but with the mysterious wisdom, like the universe knows something we don't. If we saw a perfect machine running in silence, with no flaws, no errors, just pure justice, wouldn't we wonder who built it? So the question is not whether karma is real. The question is, could karma itself be the fingerprint of something greater? Maybe karma isn't proof that we don't need God, but a quiet, sacred echo that God is already here, woven into the fabric of the universe, not watching from above, but flowing through every cause and every effect. Maybe the law isn't cold. Maybe it's not mechanical. Maybe it's loving. A love that doesn't spare us the lesson, but never abandons us in it either. So we ask, not to challenge Buddhism, but to open the door just a little wider. If such a beautiful law exists, could it be that behind it is not emptiness, but a heart vast enough to let us choose, wise enough to let us fail, and compassionate enough to guide us back through the very consequences we create? Maybe karma isn't the absence of divine judgment, but the gentlest, most intelligent form of it. And if something about that thought makes you pause, even just for a second, maybe that's not just your logic responding. Maybe it's your soul remembering something ancient, something sacred, something true.
Reason 4, enlightenment comes from within. But where does that light come from? One of the most powerful ideas in Buddhism is that you don't need anyone to save you. No prophet, no priest, no divine savior. The Buddha never claimed to rescue souls. He only pointed to a path and said, walk it yourself. And that path isn't about belief, it's about awakening. Buddhists are taught that the answers aren't found in books or heavens, but inside their own minds. Liberation, they believe, comes not from reaching up to something beyond, but by diving inward, stripping away illusion, and discovering a light that's been quietly glowing all along. That's why meditation matters so much, not as a ritual, but as a return. You sit, you breathe, you watch, and slowly you begin to realize what you've been searching for out there has been quietly waiting inside you the whole time. But here's the mystery. If there really is a light within, so steady, so bright, so wise, then where did that come from? If the deepest truths are already written into the human soul, who wrote them? If you can find peace, clarity, compassion, and even transcendence by going inward, then who placed those treasures there in the first place? It's not a rejection of Buddhism to ask that question, it's an expansion of it. Because the more we honor the beauty of the path inward, the more we must wonder what it leads to. Perhaps the silence isn't empty, perhaps it's sacred. Perhaps as the ego fades and the illusions dissolve, we begin to sense not just the self letting go, but something greater reaching in. What if enlightenment isn't just a human potential, but a divine memory? What if the light within you isn't simply yours, but a spark of something eternal that you've never been separate from? What if the journey inward isn't a denial of God, but a way to meet Him face to face? Not in fear, not in doctrine, but in stillness, as presence. Maybe that's why the Buddha didn't describe God. Not because he denied the sacred, but because he knew. Real encounter can't be described, it must be lived. It's not shouted from temples, it's discovered in silence. And maybe the voice you're hearing inside, the one urging you to wake up, to let go, to love anyway, isn't just you becoming more aware, but something divine drawing you home. You don't need to be rescued, but maybe, just maybe, you were made to be found.
Reason 5. No eternal soul. But why do we long for eternity? One of the most distinctive teachings in Buddhism is the doctrine of anatta, no self. It tells us that what we think of as me, our identity, our personality, our soul, is not permanent. It's not fixed. It's not eternal. Instead, we are a stream of changing thoughts, sensations, memories, and desires, always shifting, always moving, nothing solid, nothing lasting. And for many Buddhists, this truth is liberating, because if there's no fixed self, there's nothing to protect, nothing to fear, nothing to cling to. You don't have to defend your ego. You can simply let go. Like a river flowing downhill, you don't resist, you release. But then comes the ache. The quiet ache that lives in every human being, the longing to be known, to last, to mean something beyond today. We grieve because we love. We remember because we care. We build temples and write books and whisper prayers into the dark, not because we're deluded, but because deep down we sense that something in us was never meant to end. So we ask gently, if there's no eternal soul, then why does every part of us long for something eternal? Why do we look at the stars and feel like we belong to them? Why do we seek truth as if we were made for it? Why do we crave love that doesn't fade, peace that doesn't pass, meaning that doesn't die? Maybe Buddhism is right about the ego. Maybe the self we cling to, our titles, our stories, our masks, is an illusion. But what if that illusion covers something deeper? Not an ego, but an essence. What if beneath the impermanence there's a presence? What if we're not a fixed identity, but a soul in motion, called not to vanish, but to return? Could it be that the reason we long for eternity is because something in us already belongs to it? Could it be that this ache isn't a flaw in the human condition, but a compass pointing home? Maybe the soul isn't something we create. Maybe
It's something we remember. And maybe the reason we chase after truth, love, beauty, and belonging again and again, lifetime after lifetime, is because we were made by something eternal, and we're trying to find our way back. Not through doctrine, not through dogma, but through that silent, steady pull that's been in your chest since the day you first asked, "Who am I? And why am I here?" And maybe, just maybe, that question wasn't the start of your doubt. It was the whisper of God calling you by name.
We've explored 5 profound reasons why many Buddhists don't believe in God. Not because they deny truth, but because they seek it in a different way. Not through devotion to a divine being, but through deep awareness, personal responsibility, and inner transformation. Buddhism doesn't shout for belief. It invites you into silence, into mindfulness, into a still space where the noise of the world fades and something eternal begins to whisper. But now, at the end of this journey, another question quietly rises, not against Buddhism, but beyond it. What if that silence is not empty? What if that stillness is not just peace, but presence? What if the light we discover inside ourselves is not a product of our effort alone, but a reflection of something far greater, something holy, reaching into us from beyond? Perhaps God doesn't always appear in fire and thunder. Perhaps He appears in the quiet moment when the ego falls away, when we see clearly, when we love without reason. Perhaps the breath we follow in meditation was first given by Him. Maybe the longing for truth, for purpose, for something that lasts beyond death is not weakness or illusion, but memory, a memory of where we came from, of who made us, of who is calling us back. So now we turn to you, not to preach, but to invite, not to convince, but to open a doorway. What do you believe lies behind the silence? Do you believe truth is only within you, or do you sense it comes from somewhere far greater? Do you feel the divine in moments of stillness, of beauty, of heartbreak? Do you believe the light inside you is yours alone, or do you sometimes wonder who placed it there? Share your thoughts in the comments. We would truly love to hear. And if this journey stirred something in you, even just a question, subscribe to God or Satan. Not because we offer answers, but because we create space for the questions that matter most. Keep seeking, keep listening, and above all, stay deeply, fearlessly curious.